The views expressed on Talk Real Solutions, hosted by Tyrone Thompson at TalkRealSolutions.com, are the views of Tyrone Thompson and do not reflect the views of TalkRealSolutions.com, YouTube, or etc. The content here belongs to Talk Real Solutions and its many contributors. Views and opinions expressed by all contributors belong to them and not TalkRealSolutions.com or Tyrone Thompson, the host, or etc. All data and information provided on the site is for informational purposes only. Talk Real Solutions makes no representations as to accuracy, completeness, correctness, suitability, or validity of any information on this site and will not be liable for any errors, omissions, or delays in this information or any losses, injuries, or damages arising from its display or use. All information is provided on an as-is basis.
Welcome aboard, everybody. Thanks for tuning in to the show here tonight. Hopefully everybody can hear me okay. We're all doing good here. We have a very, very special guest tonight. And where's my chat room? A very, very special guest tonight, and that is Cynthia McKinney. I do have her on the line. I was trying to hold up and wait to make sure that we got the boss here, Tyrone, but we're going to go ahead and get it started because I don't want to hold her up. Let me go ahead and open the line. Let me just say that Cynthia McKinney, if you don't know, you should know. She's a former congresswoman, activist. She's just done phenomenal stuff here. And I don't know what happened. I'm sorry. I'm still working with stuff. It looks like I had to chat down. But she's an activist, former congresswoman, she's been in the news a lot, very well known, and she's got a lot of good information for us. Let me go ahead and bring her up. And I got your mic open now. Cynthia, I apologize. I was still trying to open chat rooms and do all kinds of stuff to get us going. But thank you very much for coming on to the show. How are you doing this evening?
I'm doing fine. It's evening for you, but it's morning for me.
Oh, okay. There you go. Well, look, it's been years since we had a chance to speak. The last time I spoke with you, you were working on your degree.
Yes, that's right. And I've completed the degree, and now I have to find something else to do.
Well, congratulations on that. So it's Dr. McKinney now.
I have my PhD, yes.
Yes, ma'am. Well, congratulations. As I said, we've spoken something before, and I got to tell you, you're just a fascinating person. To having been in the halls of power there, our Congress, and to have gone through everything you've gone through, and to have done it with this activism, going against the grain, and you're still here, you're still doing your thing, and it's just amazing.
Well, I guess it is amazing. I guess a more normal person or a sane person would quit. You don't beat your head against the wall and expect that you're not going to get bruised. Well, you get bruised and you go back and you start beating your head against the wall again. That's not quite sane.
Well, let me just kind of start from the beginning because we got something of a different audience over here on Talk Real Solutions. Last time we spoke, I was on Freedomizer, I believe it was, and we have had a much more diverse population, our listenership there, and it was mostly white. Over here, it's predominantly black. So it's kind of like you're at home, you can speak easy, and everybody understands what you're talking about. But everybody might not be as familiar with the kind of stuff that we've spoken about in the past. So I want to just start from the beginning. And I'm just going to jump ahead to Congress. When you joined Congress, can you tell us some about your experience there? What's your overall impression, or how do you summarize your experience there in Congress?
12 years in Congress, and that's a long time. You get to know the institution, you get to know the personalities, you get to know the players. You also have the opportunity to get to know what works and what I guess you learn more what works, and afterwards, when you're no longer in that environment, then you can reflect and say, well, maybe this didn't work as well as I thought it worked, and maybe this didn't work at all. So you have the benefit of perspective once you're not immersed inside a situation. And I think what we need is a lot more perspective and a lot more reflection, a lot more taking the time to understand our environment and the situation that we're in, and then fashioning a strategy to deal with that.
Well, it's interesting that you say that, because recently I've been spending a lot of time talking about how it is necessary that we understand, which, like you just said, that we understand the situation that we're in. You need to know where you are so that you can chart a course to go forward.
Right, and you see, I think it's particularly shameful. In fact, I just sent an email saying that it's almost treachery. In fact, it's not even almost, because I sent the email, and it is. I described it as treachery. I used a different word, perfidy, but it basically means the same thing, and that is if black voters hand their vote to Hillary Clinton, and by so doing, give her the Democratic Party nomination, that's perfidy. I mean, the things that she did while she was Secretary of State, the misuse of fund. All we have to do is look at Haiti in terms of the misuse of the position and the treatment of Haiti. Now, if she would do it to Haiti, she'll do it to us as well in the U.S. And in fact, I don't put anything past the actions, the policies pursued, and the actions of the former Secretary of State. What was done in Haiti? First of all, she stole an election from the people of Haiti. The people of Haiti voted one way. She said, oh, no, that candidate is too close to Hugo Chavez, so he can't win the election, even though the people voted for him. So she went down there and interfered in the democratic process. So if you don't have respect for the democratic process in other countries, you're not going to have respect for the democratic process in your own country. And we've seen the shenanigans going on in the Democratic Party with the scheduling of the debate, so-called debate, her walking onto the stage 20 minutes late, just showing an utter disregard for the process, the chaos that was bred in Iowa with the caucuses and the coin tosses, and and the failure of the Democratic Party, both the state and the national, to even give us the results. That's strikingly similar to the situation that I encountered, that I had to file a lawsuit to get my results, and even then, after filing the lawsuit, the state of Georgia said, well, the election data belong to Diebold, and so therefore you just have to trust us that the person we say is the winner of the election is actually the winner of the election. You just have to trust us. Of course, that was the whole purpose of filing the lawsuit, because we didn't trust them, but the court agreed with the state of Georgia I, to this day, cannot tell you with authority how many votes I got and how it came to be that I lost the election in 2006. I can't tell you that because the state of Georgia says that the election data belongs to the private company Diebold.
Now, Cynthia, now we're going there. This is the kind of thing. This is the meat of the matter. There's so much that you touched on. Hillary Clinton. You know, we got Trump to talk about. We got Sanders to talk about. I don't agree with him. You know, there's a lot. But what you just talked about with those Diebold voting machines and how you filed a lawsuit and could not ascertain the results. You still to this day don't know how many votes you got. They didn't tell you, and they, you know, literally are in effect told you that you have to trust it. This is insanity. Go ahead. They
published some results, but I disagreed with the results. I said, okay, back it up. Let's see how. Well, of course, there were some voting anomalies in my particular election. What happened was I was running in one particular district in the state of Georgia. But unfortunately, people all over the state of Georgia voted in my race. When they pulled up their electronic voting machines in South Georgia, my name was on the ballot. In the city of Atlanta, my name was on the ballot. In the suburbs west of Atlanta, my name was on the ballot. My name was on the ballot in places where it was not supposed to be on the ballot. So what we wanted to know was how were those votes treated? Were those votes included in the count against me? Or were those votes included in the count for me? Just what happened with those votes? And then in the so-called runoff election that was forced after the machines broke down and went down for several hours, when they came back online, we had no way of knowing what happened during the time. I was leading up until the point that the machines broke down. They give out, they say in the summertime they fail because they don't respond well in the heat. And Georgia, as you know, Georgia is not only extremely hot, but it's also extremely humid. So why would you even buy a machine that doesn't perform well in hot, humid weather? Well, anyway, the machines broke down, and when the machines came back up, I was behind. I wanted to know what happened. And in the lawsuit, the state of Georgia said, you just have to trust us. We never got any proof whatsoever that the vote that they announced was the vote that I deserved. Never, not even to this day. So now, what does Hillary Clinton do when she goes down to Haiti? The chairman of the Presidential Election Commission, I don't know if he intended to say it or if he made a mistake and just, kind of, oops, I wasn't supposed to say that. But he said that when everyone was gathered around and the presidential election was poised to make the commission was poised to make the announcement as to who was going to proceed to the runoff, Cheryl Mills, who was the chief of staff of Hillary Clinton, he handed the results to her, and she read out the results, but she read out a different result. And everybody in Haiti, all of the election commission people are standing there with their mouths open because they can't believe what just happened. Cheryl Mills, the chief of staff to the Secretary of State of the United States, read out a result that was opposite to the result that had been certified by the presidential election. And so, of course, he didn't say anything at the time, but he said something, I guess it's been about 3 or 4 months ago. He made the disclosure, and then, of course, all heck broke loose because Haiti is once again in the midst of an election, and the same young man who was denied the opportunity to serve as president of Haiti because quote unquote, according to Hillary Clinton, he was quote unquote too close to Hugo Chavez. Well, now the Hugo Chavez issue has been dealt with. Hugo Chavez is now dead, and so it'd be hard for him without dying to get close to Hugo Chavez. And so now what the presidential election and all of the candidates in Haiti have been thrown into a complete state of disruption because of the corruption that took place in 2010 at the behest of Secretary Clinton, who is yet to explain how her brother ends up with a Haitian gold mine. And the Haitians have said, we don't want to mine our gold. We want to get our gold back from the Federal Reserve that the Marines stole when they came and occupied us in the early 1900s. So the Haitians steadfastly refused to mine their gold, and yet Hillary Clinton's brother, under the president that Cheryl Mills announced, as opposed to the president that was elected by the people, that president awards Hillary Clinton's brother a gold mine. She has yet to have been asked on the record. Of course, she's asked by the Haitian people, but black people in the United States are supporting this woman who has stolen an election, given her brother a gold mine, refused to explain how she got the gold mine, and literally not only that, but sold Haiti's particular needs to people who made huge donations to the Clinton Foundation. That's what's under investigation right now by Comey at the FBI. That's one of the things that they're investigating. What was the relationship between the actions of the Secretary of State, the contracts that were let, and the donors to the Clinton Foundation? Well, we know that she did it in Haiti, and now we've got evidence to back it up from the emails that she refused to release. That, thank goodness, Judicial Watch filed a lawsuit and forced the release of the emails. Now we also know that this woman championed the bombing of Libya. This is an African country. So you mean people of African descent? Oh, I forgot. Black people in the United States don't feel that they are of African descent. And so therefore they don't care what happens in Africa. They don't care what happens in Haiti. They don't care what happens in Jamaica and all of the other places that are proud to assert their African identity. This is what happens when you have people who don't know who they are. They stand up in line for hours. They create chaos at shopping malls because they want to get Michael Jordan tennis shoes, because somehow wearing a Michael Jordan tennis shoe is going to give them the self-esteem that they can't seem to get and generate from themselves.
Man, wow. All I can do is sit back and just let you go. There's so much in everything. I mean, I want to do this. I want to try to give the listener some parameters, some basic idea, concepts here. I understand that you said that they announced with your when you lost the election, and they said this is what the votes were. Cynthia McKinney had 100 and somebody else had 150. You said, okay, we don't trust that. I want to challenge that. I want to see the results. Now they can't produce the results, and that's where I'm getting to. They can say anything they want to say. Just the same way that you talked about in Haiti, where the Haiti election people had the results, handed it to Clinton's representative and said, hey, look, here's the results. And then that lady read a different result. So these people can say what they want to say. The issue or the problem comes, and this is where the crux of the matter is, when you ask for the proof, they're not able to produce the proof for whatever reason. And what's important about this, Cynthia, what's so important about this is that I'm not speaking to Cindy from down the street. I'm speaking to Cynthia McKinney, a congresswoman for 12 years. She's been in our government. She's seen how this stuff works, and she's telling you this. This ain't ABC making up conspiracy theories. And what does this mean for our government? You know what I'm talking about?
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. And so, you know, and what happened was the powers that be that run, by the way, both the Democrat and Republican parties, it's the same individuals that run both of the political parties. So, you know, this tribalism about, well, I'm a Democrat and I'm a Democrat till I die, I'm sorry. That means you're a slave to somebody else who is operating behind the scenes, unseen and out of sight, and you don't know whose interest is really being served. The bottom line is that our vote is so precious, it's so important, that it's our interest that should be served. And if we vote for someone, it shouldn't be on the presumption that because they have a D behind their name, that they're serving our interests. Clearly, they're not serving our interests, because look at the conditions of the black community now. Look at what happened in 2008 when I ran for president under a platform of power to the people, and Barack Obama ran for president, and everyone flocked to Barack Obama, even though they didn't know who he was, didn't have a track record. If people knew who I was, I knew I had a track record. They knew that I was going to be remain true to the community, but everyone wanted the opportunity to put a black man in the White House, which happened, and look, you're worse off.
Well, you know, you're going to start some fights saying that, Cynthia.
Well, I mean, all they have to do is look at their objective conditions. I don't have to, I'm not saying anything that people aren't experiencing in the street. Are you richer today than you were 8 years ago? Are you better off today than you were 8 years ago? Very few people can say yes, because we've been through the stripping of the mortgage situation. We've got student loans going out the yin-yang. Are you better off? No.
Yeah, it's crazy. I want to do this because there's quite a few people that are on the line, and let me tell them, anybody that wants to ask a question, go ahead and put your hand up. We've got Cynthia only for about an hour, so about 30, 40 more minutes. And I don't want to take up all the time, but I do want to make sure that it's understood by everybody that this, you know, I know it's repetitive, but this is a congressperson. You know, she's been sitting in the hearings, watching the laws, submitting laws. She sees how the sausage is made. You know, she's not talking about going to the store and buying a pack of sausage. She's talking about watching how this stuff is made, participating in it, and trying to help secure it to make sure it's correct.
So I should be considered a part of the intellectual property of the black community, because of what I've seen, what I've participated in, and the knowledge that I have acquired as a result of actually being there. You would think that I am something that is patentable. You see, when you have intellectual property, you don't want anybody to steal it. And so, therefore, you take legal precautions to protect it. But the intellectual property that I have acquired will only protect the black community, and it will hurt the rest of the larger community. So instead of listening to my truth, what the larger community does then is they put someone with no intellectual property that belongs to us, but that has a lot of intellectual property that belongs to them. They put them in front of us and tell it, now that's your leader. Okay? Now, if we're silly enough to believe that, then we deserve to be in the predicament that we're in now.
Wow. I'm with you 100%. So, man, I could go on, and I got so much I want to shape this. However, I know we're short for time, and I want to let people get in and ask questions. So, callers, I have to say this to you, and I apologize, but we don't have a lot of time, so you got to keep your comments brief, please, and ask your question, quickly, please, so that other people can get their questions in too. But if you're okay, Cynthia, I'm going to go ahead and start taking some calls here. Is that okay?
That's fine.
Yes, ma'am. All right. First call, and I believe this is Mr. Mandela. Okay, so I'm gonna keep an eye on the clock. You got about a minute or so to make your comment and ask your question. Go ahead, caller 302.
Cynthia, all right. This is very good. After you were reached out of running for the white people's house, you came to Philadelphia, and Pam, Ramona from Move, and you and I, we were all in this church. And remember the tall guy that was discussing how Israel, a foreign government, had captured you, killed some American people, and put you in a gulag in Rostov. And I asked you one specific question. Did you get any kind of condolence or anything from the First Lady or the President? And you actually said you didn't hear a damn word. Now, what I want you to do is to explain to these people of how the African, because we got a lot of Hebrew Israelites that always talk about Yah and the Most High. But like I tell them, that Netanyahu will cut your throat if you try to get on television over there. But let them know how the women, African, are treated in those concentration camps, and how you were treated once that illegal settler government kidnapped you unjustly, that nobody in the State Department or none of the FCC or the radio knew anything about it until the Pan-African Intelligence Network told all FCC, that's WURD in Philly, and the NAACP. They're going to ask me, well, how did I know you was locked up? Like I told them, I got stuff that they don't get. And once we got them in their ass about that, that was when they finally released you, but no telling what they would have done. So tell them what was happening as the African women over there in Israel, if you would. Much love, much respect to you, my sister.
All right. Thanks a lot, Mandela. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Thank you. This is a wonderful question because what Israel does to the African women is shameful. It's absolutely shameful. I just posted a video that was sent to me of what Israel of Israel shooting Palestinian kids. But in addition to them targeting and shooting Palestinian kids, they also incarcerate the women. Now, the women who are not incarcerated, those women are forced to take Depo-Provera shots. Now, Depo-Provera sterilizes you because, it's a birth control, but it's a condition of their visa that they not get pregnant and they not have children in Israel. And can you believe this? And so they force the African women to take shots. And this has tremendous adverse health effects on the women who are there. And many of those women are Ethiopian and some Eritrean, but they come for job opportunities because, as one of the young women told me, it's the Holy Land. And the Ethiopians are extremely religious, and so they say it's the Holy Land, it's a job that's available in the Holy Land, and so they go. But what is not stated in those advertisements is that, well, if you're a Christian, then we don't really want you in Israel. And in fact, if you look at the Christian population, it has decreased tremendously. And I think it's now down to less than 2%. And
wow.
According to some estimates, for those who, are interested in this, according to some estimates, in just a few years, there will be very few Christians left in, the Holy Land. And that's because they're being summarily run out. They're being run out. They're being forced out. They're being cleansed. And this is something that is not broadcast widely. And I don't understand how the religious black people can support what's going on in Israel to other Christians, if that's a point that will move you. And
I think they don't know about it.
But Hillary Clinton, before you give your vote to somebody, you're supposed to know who it is. And Hillary Clinton is the biggest Zionist we are not talking about Bernie Sanders right now because,
I was going to bring him up.
Yeah, there are some issues there as well. But if you have Hillary Clinton in power, has demonstrated what she's capable of doing. She's capable of supporting the Israel. In fact, she said that there was not going to be any daylight between her and Israel, that she's going to double down and be more supportive of Israel than even Obama was, which is hard to believe. And Israel right now is deploying a missile system that the U.S. taxpayers paid for. So we're all taxpayers. So you would think that, I really don't like my tax money going for weapons. Well, you would think, okay, if you don't like it, then you select somebody who is going to be more respectful of your values and your tax dollars. In this case, that's neither Hillary Clinton nor Bernie Sanders. That's a whole different issue. But I absolutely can't see the African-American vote going to Hillary Clinton after what she's done. And, the Haitians are still asking what happened to the $1 billion that was raised for Haiti, and 6 houses were built.
Just real quick, callers, I know somebody else was on the line and they dropped. The phone number is 602-753-1949. Go ahead.
Yeah, let me continue on this thing that the caller called about the treatment of the Africans, because now here is a classic example from what I witnessed. What they've done is you've got all of these people of color who are coming into Israel for job opportunities, really. The U.S. policy has been to totally destroy their country, and so therefore they have no choice but to leave and try and eke out a living as best they can in a country that hates them, not unsimilar to what happens in the U.S. with the Latinos in Latin America coming to the U.S.
Right.
Well, anyway, so the sector that I saw the highest African employment is in that sector that is in charge of guarding those people. So, so basically, the Africans are being used as collaborators in their own oppression and to oppress their other brothers and sisters who come there for the same reason that they're in Israel. But they just happen to be Jews. Now, let's take a look at this. You've got European Jews who establish the state of Israel, and they discriminate against the original Jews. And the original Jews accept the discrimination.
And work as collaborators and help oppress the rest of the black people.
That's correct.
I could spend so much time on each one of these. It's crazy. And somebody keeps calling, and then you hang back up. But look, this thing, since we're talking about it now, Israel, this whole Middle East issue, it's a big cluster. However, the bottom line with it is the current issue and the tragedies that are occurring over there, I believe, It's going to this Greater Israel Project. It's cleaning house. They sent in the construction workers and hey, tear down this forest. We're going to put up some high rises and stuff. That's the deal for Israel. Clear Iraq, Afghanistan, Syria, Libya. Clear the area. We're going to spread out Israel, and we're going along with this. It's unbelievable to me, and I guess it's the religious thing where people believe this is God's plan and God's chosen people, but I do believe that very many people don't see this. They don't believe it. They see that it's all wicked and it's not right. However, this country has been captured by it, and this war on terror, which we've talked about in the past, is the current manifestation of this greater plan of expanding that colonial power, Israel, there in the Middle East. What do you think about that?
Yes, it's absolutely the case. And basically, first of all, I don't use the language Middle East because that's extremely Eurocentric, and it's language that was started by Henry Kissinger, and the last person I'm going to follow is Henry Kissinger. Mm-hmm. And it's also an effort to separate Africa from Asia, and so the geographically correct terminology is West Asia, North Africa. And so, there are some people who say, well, it's North Africa, so the only part of Africa that's really Africa is the part that's below the Sahara Desert. That's a bunch of bunk. Africa is Africa. And and the people who built the pyramids look like me and you. I don't know how you look, but however you look, they look like me and you. And so if we look at even the human migration, let me put it this way, the Homo sapien migration, because East Africa is the home of Homo sapiens. And so if you look at the migration, even the change in, sort of like the color of hair, the color of eyes, the color of the skin, it all came about because of the migration to areas where there was not much sun, and the body had to adapt to the reality that it wasn't going to get very much vitamin D from the sun, and so it had to adapt to the situation of not having any, much sun. And this is how you end up with the Germanic-looking people in Europe, and you end up with people who look like, who are more our color from Africa and in parts of Asia. And then the higher up you go in terms of the latitude, the lighter the skin color is. It has nothing to do with, I'm smarter because I come from Europe, but it's the Eurocentrism that has taken hold. But what we have to do is look at our own, if we look at ourselves and steep ourselves in the correct literature, like Frantz Fanon, Black Skin, White Mass, which was his dissertation, and he wrote that about this colonial contact and what it does psychologically to people who think that they're inferior, and then they think that they're superior, and they come into contact with people that they may feel that they are inferior. That whole psychology gets played out over and over and over again. I'm in Egypt at the pyramid, and if you go, like it's the Pyramid Hotel, which you look out the windows and you can see the pyramids is right there. And you go down the street and you got a cream to make your skin white, because no matter where you go in the world, if you go to a place that was colonized by Western Europeans, you feel that you're inferior, and you feel that your dark skin is a badge of dishonor, which is absolutely stupid. And that's one of the ways in which we psychologically buy into our own oppression, why we have to stand in line for some Michael Jordan tennis shoes, because we've allowed them to totally strip us, absolutely, completely, of our own dignity in the pride in our hair, the pride in our skin color, the pride of our lips and our noses, even to the extent that we see these actors and actresses putting this stuff on their lips to make their lips look like ours, and yet we somehow feel that we're ugly and they are not. The whole psychology of oppression has been used against us to continue to oppress us. And I have a quote from Steve Biko. Let me find it right quick. Steve Biko said, the biggest weapon in the hands of the oppressors is the minds of the oppressed. But now, back to your point, the project, well, first of all, it was a project for Israel for the 1980s. It's called the Yenon Plan. And basically, it calls for the ethnic cleansing of that entire area so that, as you correctly point out, the Greater Israel Project can become realized. And that was a plan for the 1980s. Then it was upgraded to a plan for the 1990s written by the Project for a New American Century boys, the PNAC boys, and that was a document. You can find this information. You can find all this stuff on the Internet. All you have to do is just search YINON, Yenon Plan, and then there's
PNAC.
A Clean Break. Yes, A Clean Break is the document by the PNAC boys, A Clean Break. And in the Clean Break, what they're talking about is the time will come when Israel will step out of the shadow of the U.S., and when that time comes, we will know it because certain things will have taken place. The things that are happening now, the destruction of Iraq, the destruction of Libya, the destruction of Lebanon, the destruction of Syria, all of these things that are happening right now that your tax dollars are being used for, these are the things that are called for in the Clean Break document written by the Project for a New American Century boys.
Just, let me say, I have these discussions on some of these radio shows, and this is where people get into, here we go with conspiracy and all stuff, and you know how that goes, Cynthia. But I'm asking people, those of you who have, differences of opinion, or you think maybe when I start talking about this stuff that I'm going off on a deep end, again, you've got a congressperson here, 12 years she's been in there. She knows what's going on. She knows how the sausage is made. Call in and ask her directly about some of this stuff. Now, to what everything you just pointed out, and I love it, it's exactly what I say. But this, and you know how I always talk about the cabal.
Yes, that's what I call them too.
Exactly. But to your point, what you were saying about the psychology that's worked on us, and you gave the quote by Steve Biko. This is what I've said. I've been kind of preaching this recently on some of these radio shows. And this isn't to say that somebody, these people are better than us or nothing. I'm just talking about the historical record. This European has come here to this country, and he's made it. He's used us. He's used the native. He used everybody, but it's his country. He created this document, the founders, and all this stuff, and they built it in his image for him, by him, for him, using our labor and all this stuff. So that everything that comes out of this, and we went through the slavery for 100 years, for a couple 100 years. After that, Jim Crow and all this other stuff. But the bottom line is, this whole infrastructure, this society, has been built up to benefit him. All of us are collateral people, as helpers and all this kind of stuff. And the lie is that, hey, we're all the same and it's all this and that. I mean, that's the truth in reality. However, the way that this system works is for him. It ain't for us. So that the psychology, what you talked about, the psychology, the imagery that's put out there is the negative images of us. the stereotypes that are put out there, the negative stereotypes of us. So that we, this is 2016, but as you just said, we got the kids out there, running over each other for gym shoes. But, unemployment is high. This single parenting thing, I keep talking about that, is a big issue because these kids are unsupervised. We lack the unity and self-esteem to empower ourselves. All of this is because it's systemic. It was built this way, and they intend to keep it this way, to manage us. And I do have another caller. I'm going to open up your line in a second, caller. But what do you say about any of that, Cynthia?
Well, first of all, every chance I get, I try to have a conversation with white males. And first of all, I just want to say that what you're saying is absolutely correct. And we have a lecture given by James Wolfenson, former president of the World Bank, who basically says this, and it's almost a quote. He says that the institutions of the world were created to acknowledge that fact. What's the fact that he's talking about? That 80% of global GDP was reserved for the 1 billion people of European descent. They created the international institutions, the United Nations, the World Bank, the International Monetary Fund. All of that was created for what purpose? To continue the plunder of the countries of people of color from colonialism, neo-colonialism, globalization. Today it's called neoliberalism, but it's the same phenomenon that existed, that capitalism brought to us through colonialism. And the Western Europeans were the first people to go throughout the entire world, not the known world, but the entire world, and to plunder through colonialism. So now we have James Wolfenson in a lecture at Stanford University, and you can find that as well. My YouTube page is Run, Cynthia, Run. So you go there, you'll see it. James Wolfenson says this, which is a kind of overt proof to what some people might, that's a conspiracy theory. No, it's not a conspiracy theory. It's a conspiracy fact. And so now we've got James Wolfenson, who has confirmed the fact. Yes, the international economic structure was created by people, a certain group of people, to benefit a certain group of people. Now, with respect to the U.S., you've got the genocide of the indigenous people. You had to steal their land because they were here. This is a part of that great migration that occurred from East Africa, while Homo sapiens that eventually took advantage of that land bridge across from Russia and Alaska and came down. Maybe some of them took boats. We don't exactly know how they got there. But the first Americans were Africans. This is all been confirmed. I actually included this information in my dissertation because I think the Eurocentrism is so steep that it was important to put this information in there. In Brazil, the oldest human artifact of human, actually the skull and the bones are when the researchers put them together. And then they took them to Europe to try it because that's where the person who does this kind of thing by taking bone
carbon dating.
Well, it's not the carbon dating because they can do that on site. But when you build the face based on the bone structure of the bones that you find. And the structure was African. And so they were shocked. You've got a Chinese geneticist who did 12,000 DNA samples because the Chinese always thought that they were different people, that their branch of Homo sapiens was different than, say, the branch of Homo sapiens in Europe or whatever. And this geneticist took the DNA sample. 12,000 people all have the same marker. From where? Africa. So the African ancestors of the Chinese ancestors are African. The Brazilian ancestors, which is the oldest bones found in all of America, which means North America, South America, is African. So the theory of the human migration from East Africa down to Africa, then over to West Africa, and then around to Asia and all that is borne out by the evidence that has been discovered. So now what I do is I talk to my white male friends and I say, now, you committed a crime against humanity because you sucked up the Africans out of the African continent, depleted the African continent of its human resources in the slave trade. So did that. You stole the land and did the genocide of the indigenous people. And so and you built the country and declared your independence. And now the country is no longer independent because now the United States has been totally subjugated. The WASP, white Anglo-Saxon Protestants, who sat at the top of the, human pyramid at one point, now they have been displaced. And they've been displaced by the people that we call the Zionists. And so the United States, everyone has a policy toward Israel. But if you look at the candidates, okay, you've got this billionaire by the name of Brahman. He supports Rubio. You've got Haim Saban. He's the one that's the Democratic mover and shaker. You've got, I've got a place where I've got them all written down. The one that, so you've got somebody that supports Cruz. You've got the Adelsons, and they haven't weighed in. But all of these people, their first, who are financing both Democrats and Republicans, their first interest is Israel. Is Israel. And so I tell the white males that I get to talk to in sort of a taunting, but, playful kind of way, is that, you guys thought you were so big and bad and you enslaved us, and you stole the land from the indigenous people, and now all I see is cowards. What happened to you guys? What happened?
That's pretty good. Hey, let me open this line. I love what you're saying, and I really want to get to these candidates, this Trump and Sanders and all of them, but let me open this line real quick. Caller, are you there?
Hetapu, Honorable Queen Mother, Dr. Sister Cynthia McKinney. I spoke to you many moons ago, and I'm so honored you're here. I am Angel Lady Love, listener, inspired friend, and emissary. Rama BB Louise I am, and I am in the Philadelphia, Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, and Honorable Brother ABC and all the Talk Real Solution family and friends, and my High Commander, Brother Mendelicon, and my High Chief, Brother Tyrone. The key here is I came in late. However, I had to push the button because when I heard you say, or Brother ABC had said, that these people took my land. I'm still here. They didn't annihilate all the indigenous people. In fact, all of us, the higher universal melanin-enriched sovereign man, higher universal melanin-enriched sovereign womb man, are of the four corners of the planet Earth, which you just said. And wherever we place our feet is holy ground. And they did use my tenets in this country. So I don't know why you think that, Brother ABC, that you said what you said about these Caucasoids. They know their time is up. And the bottom line,
Yes,
they used our stuff. And what I want to bring to the attention of Honorable Queen Mother, Dr. Sister Cynthia McKinney, you had gone and risked your life going over there. I think it was Palestine.
Yes.
And I bow before you and I thank you, and I'm so glad you're back home safe. Every time I think of you, I think of the fact that Honorable President Aristide called you when he was being ousted from Haiti.
Yes, yes.
And I don't know if you want to say anything about that, but where is he now? I don't hear from him, and they brought Baby Doc back from France there, so we don't hear from them. But the other factor is that back to Africa, Palestine, and Israel. Israel, and I'm grateful that you confirmed what I've been telling people, the originals are being run out of there. And I have paid attention to this Christian broadcast station, Trinity Broadcast Station. They use a lot of advertising of asking for fundraisers from the evangelicals to send donations so that they can send the northern Russians, Jews, as they misnomer them, to Israel. As well as the fact now, most recent advertising is that they need $1,500 per person to bring the ones from Ukraine, the so-called Jews from Ukraine, to Israel. And what they also are filling up are Palestinians.
Angel Lady Love, we got to tighten it up.
Okay, well, I'm trying to ask her to confirm what I'm saying, because in truth, she did say this already, but I don't know if you heard it, that they're really the people who are occupying Israel and Palestine are northern Russians, and it's the Russians who built Iran's nuclear plant. And here in 2-4, I am saying Iran would never bomb Israel because they're filled with northern Russians. And I humbly ask you, what do you think about the Russians building the Vietnam nuclear plant right now, and no one's dealing with that? I thank you so much for listening.
Thank you.
And and I need you.
Okay, because there's a lot going on there. Cynthia, whatever you can take from that, I know is kind of a lot that's on the table, but.
Right. Well, I think on the one hand, it is somewhat ironic, given the evidence that I have presented, and that has been, presented and pretty much confirmed that the Chinese geneticist, his name is Dr. Li, L.I. is his name, and the Brazilian skull finds, these things indicate that if you're going to talk about indigenous people, you might as well talk about us, right? But somehow our language doesn't reflect that reality. And so you do have to include us as indigenous people because, I've been to Pakistan. And in Pakistan, there are people who the greeting that I got, it was West African, so, and the people look just like the West Africans, and these are indigenous. They've always been there. You go and you ask and so they've always been there. They're discriminated against, but they're like the old community. And you can always go to these countries and find a community of people that are, as our caller called it, much melanated. And, we are everywhere. We are everywhere on this planet. Right. So the situation in Libya, if I could just drop this in for a minute, and that is, it was so silly to show you how brainwashed people in the United States are when they were shocked to see black people in Libya. Remember? They were talking, they're mercenaries. Oh, they're mercenaries. Gaddafi brought them up from. Well, do you know that 60% of the Libyans have skin that's dark like mine? I know my skin is dark. And so I can say 60% of Libya looks like me.
Right. It's
You're
Africa.
going to take African out of Africa. Africans are all over Africa. It's just stupid.
Well, that's the power of the media, and I talk about that TV. We make a joke about TV and all this stuff, but that is powerful. I remember reading Malcolm X's book where he talked about giving a speech and a lecture about I forget what it was. Maybe it's about original peoples or Cleopatra and all this stuff. And this was at Harvard or one of these Ivy League schools, and some professor made a comment that Malcolm X was lying and Cleopatra was white or something like that. And Malcolm X said, "Where'd you get that from?" And he said it was on TV.
Yeah.
How ridiculous.
Yeah.
But I do have another.
I was on a plane, and it was like something like History Channel or Discover Channel or something like that. And I'm looking at this show on Cleopatra, and the great revelation of the show was that Cleopatra was African. That was the great revelation, that, she had strains of African in her. Well, that's not a revelation. It's only a revelation to people who are so steeped in their Eurocentrism that they don't know that Egypt is in Africa.
Right.
And so the caller talked about, and I see our time is almost up too as well. But the caller talked about Russia. Let me talk about, it was Netanyahu's wife who gave us the confirmation of who they are. Because remember that she has, the Netanyahus have as their family help Ethiopians. And so the Ethiopian driver and house help filed a lawsuit for abuse. And it was the Netanyahu's wife who said, "We're sophisticated Europeans." And I said, absolutely right. That's exactly who you are, Europeans.
Right. Hey,
what are you doing in Palestine?
And that's like the truth right in front of your face. It's so obvious that it'll just go right past people and they won't pay attention. I want to do this before you go. There's one caller that's been holding on for a little bit. If I could take this call and then get your take on all this presidential election, the various candidates. And caller, I'm asking you really have to keep it brief because she's already over her time. If you can ask your question, make your comment. Hold on, I got your mic. Area code 314.
Yeah, how you doing, ABC? Cynthia, how you doing? This Bianca here in St. Louis. Last time we met, you was at St. Louis University. Zaki brought you in.
Yes.
But, the statement that Wolferson made, he went on to say that the dynamics of those who control the world is changing. And him himself, in that same speech at Stanford University, predicted that 2050, that lopsidedness where Europeans control 20% to 80% of the developing world will switch over where it would be, he said that China and India will control at least 50% of the global GDP. And, of course, Europeans would drop down to about 35%. But what I was going to ask you, you was in Libya, and you and Walter Fauntleroy was there. Am I correct?
Yes, Fauntleroy went there. The way he got there is quite interesting. He was called to go there, and the way the story gets told to me is that he was told to go there by the State Department, whereas I went there on a different mission. He went there to clean up my mission, but after he got there, he had to substantiate everything I said. It was beautiful.
Well, let me ask you something. Did Hillary give out the order that he needs to be eliminated or something to that effect?
Who needs
Hillary.
to be eliminated? Did
she give out the order? Because apparently you was there, of course, that you was there to put out information that otherwise would never have been known. And
right.
then he, like you said, he substantiated everything that you was doing. So did she try to retaliate?
Oh, well, now, that I don't know. But clearly, what I was told is that Fontroy, that this is what came to Fontroy. McKinney has made a mess. Because remember, after I came back, I went to 29 cities all over the U.S. and was telling them. So Fontroy was sent in to clean up the mess that I was making by telling the truth. But when Fontroy got there was something about him. He had lied and covered up for folk in the darn House Assassination Committee on Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. He wasn't going to lie anymore. He didn't lie. And so then what Fontroy said was just as bad as what I was saying. So it was beautiful. But now, of course, you're right that you can't hear about anything from Fontroy anymore. And, in fact, what they did was, what I read anyway, was that they put a warrant out for his arrest, and he's in a country so as to not be extradited, and he apparently owes somebody some money, some vendor from a Congressional Black Caucus event or something. Something.
Yeah, they made
anyway,
up.
He's not in the U.S. any longer. At least that's what I read. And if he comes back, then something might happen to him.
All right, well, I'm going to let you go, and I really appreciate the service that you have provided throughout the years. And how's your father? Is he still doing okay?
Oh, no, my dad crossed over. It's, sort of why I just am kind of at sea myself, lost, because my father had so much vision and, so I'm just sort of lost now, drifting.
Well, you hang in there. I'm sad to hear that, but you'll be okay, as you always have been. So you just keep on the fighting, and we'll have your back. I'll talk to you later.
There you go. Hey, thanks a lot for that, Pianki. That was a good call. Hey, Cynthia, wow, I'm really sorry to hear about that. My parents passed a few years back, and it happens. We all, all of us are going to go at some point. But before you would go, I really, really wanted to get your comment about Sanders. Well, you told us about Clinton. I think we've been pretty clear what's going on with Clinton. But Sanders, Trump, Cruz, Rubio, just your overall take on all this stuff.
Well, in a sentence, because I do have to go, but the limitation on Sanders is that he has a blind spot for the Zionists. Maybe, he has a sweet spot for the Zionists. And when he called Hugo Chavez a dead dictator, that was just, is a bit much. And we have to remember that all of the votes that have passed in support of Israel's bombing of Gaza, those votes passed unanimously in the Senate, and he's in the Senate. So that tells us something about, the funding for these wars. And David Swanson has repeatedly written about Sanders' failure to deal with the military budget. We also know about his, he's not fluent in dealing with people of color, particularly black people. And so when those issues arise, we saw it was quite clumsy fumble when Black Lives Matter interrupted him, whereas he really could have taken that as a positive and turned it into a positive if he had been able to, if the people around him had been able to advise him how to turn that into a positive. Now, since he has recovered, but the blacks in Vermont say that they've been invisible the whole time he's been in office, even when he was mayor of Burlington. So there's an article that was written suggesting that there are some things that Bernie Sanders could do. And that the article is interesting because it even suggests that he could put me on a committee of people to determine the next Supreme Court justice that would be appointed by President Sanders. So, there are some ways that he can recover. Trump, I think it is highly possible that, we could be saying President Trump in January, although he does have a few legal issues hanging out there. One of those is with Trump University, and, we know that those proprietary schools, which are the last resort for many people who don't go to regular schools, they go to these private proprietary schools. And the bottom line for the proprietary school is not the transmittal of knowledge, but the accumulation of profit. And so we have to understand that. But he's got a lawsuit that just was given the green light to go ahead and survive some summary judgment. And that's something that he's going to have to deal with. Hillary Clinton's got several investigations, 3 investigations going on as well. So we really could end up with a situation of Bernie Sanders versus Trump. Cruz, now that Ben Carson has dropped out of the race, I think Cruz demonstrated the kind of racism and outright, underhandedness when in Iowa he put out that Ben Carson had dropped out of the race. And he did that while at the same time invoking the name of Jesus Christ. I mean, it's just, it's just horrible. And Ben Carson never recovered from that because people thought he had dropped out of the race. He didn't do well. And and the press didn't really, they did report it. But I just thought that was the kind of underhanded thing that, a Bible-toting, I'm a Bible-toting Texan should be above doing that sort of thing. And then, of course, Wayne Madsen has done the 411 on Rubio. Rubio's got certain skeletons in his closet, and those skeletons are not so much in the closet. All one has to do is go to Wayne Madsen report, and you can read them. So it's WayneMadsenReport.com on Rubio. But the bottom line is that we've got this other thing that's brewing that nobody is really talking about, and that's the Jeffrey Epstein case. That Jeffrey Epstein is a pedophile, and he went to prison. He's a billionaire pedophile. But apparently, all of that was going on with in Trump's building that maybe he didn't know about, or maybe he did. But there is a relationship that Trump has with Jeffrey Epstein. But Bill Clinton also has that same relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. He was on the plane and he was in the mansion. So you've got a whole lot of things that are percolating, and it's just a matter of which one is going to heat up fast enough to come to a boil before the convention and what will come to a boil after the convention.
Wow. Do you have any hope for where we're headed?
I used to always say I had hope. But now with the vote that the black people did, putting Hillary over the top in South Carolina, I'm just shaking my head now, and I'm saying, even voting your interests, I recognize the economic benefit that accrued to Black America while Bill Clinton was in office, but Hillary Clinton is not Bill Clinton. Even if people were going to vote on the basis of that, they're not voting for Bill Clinton. They're voting for Hillary, who's a whole different kettle of fish. And so anyway, I would just ask people to be more aware of what is going on and who these people really are that are being paraded in front of you. And dig and do the research to find out who their big name billionaire supporters are and what their main interests are, because that's the only way you'll really be able to tell what the main interest of these candidates is. They're not going to tell you in a 30-second soundbite.
I got that right. Hey, Cynthia, thank you so much, and thank you for staying over a little bit. I know it's we went over time some, but it's been great, and I really want these guys, hopefully we can get you back on and Tyrone can do the interview. We're on the same page, I believe. I think a lot of things we agree on. I'd like somebody who might not know as much about you, who might have some questions about conspiracies and all this stuff, to be able to ask the questions and get some answers from somebody who's been inside. So hopefully we'll have you back sometime.
Okay, very good. See you.
Okay, thanks a lot, Cynthia.
Bye-bye.
All right, everybody, that's Cynthia McKinney. There's a couple of lines, and all these people spoke. I'll open up these lines. But I do want to say that hopefully you guys got some good information. I will say that, I had hoped to have it a little more structured as far as going from A to Z, where, you could get a little bit more about her background and how she went into Congress and all that stuff. We kind of jumped right into the middle of it, which is all fine. I think all the information's there. But, hey, this is a lady that's been in there. She's been in the halls where they do all this stuff. So, this was an opportunity. And I know that a few of the people that probably think different than her on some things weren't able to get through. But I hope we'll have her back, and I hope that you guys can call in yourselves and ask the questions yourselves and give your input yourselves so that you can get her feedback. Again, not that she's God or somebody, but from somebody who's been inside and has some knowledge of how the stuff works. You can get her feedback and see what she has to say about it. So I'm going to do this. Actually, let me play this song real quick, and I'm going to get some water, and then I'll come right back. And I'll open all the lines, and we can just talk about it some.